Olá! Você está prestes a assistir The Basics on Jetfire, que é uma produção de Chris McFeely, com legendas em português por Marlos Greenlock, da Nova Cybertron. Aliás, a Nova Cybertron é a mais antiga comunidade brasileira de fãs de Transformers, e você também pode fazer parte dela. É só se inscrever lá no Facebook ou aqui no YouTube para não perder nenhuma novidade. Depois de assistir esse vídeo, passa no meu canal de Dinastia Transformers para ver a revisão dessa figura fantástica, o Jetfire da coleção Siege on Cybertron. Mas antes disso, se divirta com este vídeo.
I got another Patreon-sponsored episode for you this week on a subject chosen by supporter Michael Miskillen. Michael wanted the basics on that faction-swapping scientist and legal headache, Jetfire. The original Jetfire toy started out life as the VF-1S Super Valkyrie jet fighter, the iconic mecha from the legendary 1982 anime Super Dimension Fortress Macross, released by Takatoku Toys. Takatoku went out of business in 1984, but the design of the toy was purchased by Bandai, from whom Hasbro then licensed it to use as part of the second year of the Transformers toy line in 1985. Ironically enough, this meant that when Macross was imported by Harmony Gold and released in the US as Robotech that year, the Valkyrie figure couldn't be part of the accompanying toy line, since Hasbro had beaten them to the license. Marvel writer Bob Budiansky wrote a profile for Jetfire, characterizing him as swift, daring, and eager for battle, a believer in scientific advancement as the key to winning the war. The profile stated he was the first of a new generation of Autobots created on Earth, with the commercial for the Jetfire toy adding that he was designed to combat the Decepticons' air superiority. But the cartoon and Marvel comic would take the character in a somewhat different direction, and that's where the trouble started. See, in 1985, Hasbro's Japanese partner Takara began selling the Transformers toy line in their markets. But they couldn't sell Jetfire, because Bandai owned the rights to the Valkyrie toy in Japan. This meant that Jetfire's inclusion in the cartoon was problematic. How could it air in Japan if it featured a toy from a rival company? Consequently, Jetfire was completely redesigned for animation so that he no longer resembled the toy, and they even went so far as to change the cartoon character's name to Skyfire, meaning that the first season's already recorded dialogue.
His name is Jetfire.
It's that traitor Jetfire! Have no fear! Jetfire's here!
Had to be redone before broadcast.
His name is Skyfire.
It's that traitor Skyfire! Have no fear! Skyfire's here!
In the cartoon, Skyfire was a friend of Starscream's who had crash-landed on prehistoric Earth while on a scientific expedition millions of years prior, and been frozen in Arctic ice. Discovered and revived by the Decepticons in the present day, Skyfire hesitantly sided with his old friend Starscream, but when his eyes were opened to the Decepticons' evil, he sided with the Autobots against them. His debut appearance concluded with him being buried in ice once more, but the Autobots soon had him thawed out to join them on several more adventures. Unfortunately, Skyfire's new name and redesigned appearance evidently weren't enough to satisfy legal requirements, and he was quietly dropped from the show only a few episodes into the second season. He had a better time of it in the Marvel comic, which used his revised design, but was able to keep the Jetfire name. Here, as in Budiansky's profile, he was created on Earth, but like the cartoon, he had a Decepticon beginning. He was built by the evil Shockwave, who intended to force the captive Optimus Prime to bring Jetfire to life as a Decepticon with his creation Matrix. Fortunately, Prime had transferred the Matrix to the Autobots' human ally Buster Witwicky, who used its power to take control of Jetfire and thwart Shockwave's plan. Prime subsequently used the Matrix to bring Jetfire to life as an Autobot, and he went on to assume a position of authority in their ranks, though the UK comic would spend some time exploring the issues that Jetfire struggled with as a result of his Decepticon origins, including the distrust with which the other Autobots initially regarded him. While licensing issues had made Jetfire a problem for America and Japan, they worked in his favour in continental Europe. When the Transformers toy line launched there, it didn't include Optimus Prime, because the license for his toy was held in that part of the world by a different company named Justra. Until the rights could be sorted out and Optimus added back into the line, a new leader character for the Autobots was needed, and Jetfire was chosen, famously immortalized in the role in a pack-in mini-comic. After his toy was discontinued in 1987, Jetfire didn't reappear until 1995, when a new Cyberjet figure of the character was released as part of the Transformers Generation 2 toy line. As quickly as he had reappeared, though, Jetfire faded back into retirement for the rest of the decade. But during this second absence, something unique happened. In 2001, Hasbro released a toy named Skyfire as part of the Robots in Disguise toy line. This was the only time they ever did so, but the bot was no relation to the original Jetfire. He was a loyal Decepticon. The Unicron trilogy introduced the first brand new incarnation of Jetfire, who debuted in 2003 in Transformers Armada. This new Jetfire was second in command of the Autobots, a friendly space shuttle full of bravado who was down to earth in his off time, but all business on the battlefield. Jetfire was left in charge on Cybertron while Optimus Prime left for Earth to search for the lost Minicons, but later joined his leader on the alien world, where their power to combine to form Jet Optimus won many a battle. Jetfire continued in his second-in-command role into Transformers Energon, in which he was upgraded with the spark of combination to be able to combine with other Autobots, like the hot-headed rookie Ironhide. An Energon-fueled upgrade later in this series gave him a new color scheme, but Hasbro chose to release this toy as a separate character named Overcast, who was treated as Jetfire's brother. In the final chapter of the trilogy, Transformers Cybertron, Jetfire had a new cargo plane alternate mode and a new Australian accent, but the Hasbro website quickly explained that no, this was actually a Nebulon accent, which he'd picked up while vacationing on the planet between series. While the Unicron trilogy was reinventing the character, comic books were sticking closer to his original portrayal, drawing on aspects of the character from both the cartoon and the Marvel comic. Dreamwave Productions were the first to place heavy emphasis on Jetfire's function as a scientist, going so far as to depict him as something of an atheist. As in the cartoon, he was an old friend of Starscream's who was frozen in ice on Earth, thawed out to help fight the demented Starscream clone, Sunstorm. Dreamwave also amalgamated aspects of both Jetfire's original toy and character designs into one for the first time, a move that would later be reflected in new toys for the character, beginning with 2006's Transformers Classics Jetfire figure. The hybridized Classics design also appeared in IDW Publishing's comic books when Jetfire made his debut in their pages. IDW's Jetfire also had a Decepticon dalliance in his past, having sided with them back when they were an underground movement because he agreed with their beliefs on equality, since he had faced prejudice himself as a Jet who wanted to defy his own function and go into science. But realizing that the Decepticons were using terrorist tactics, Jetfire sided with police officers Orion Pax and Prowl against them and joined the Autobots as the war broke out. He continues to put his scientific skills to work today with the help of his faithful drone, Doc. IDW didn't include Jetfire's friendship with Starscream or his icy imprisonment, but that plot has long been a favourite of Japanese comic books, with multiple manga retelling it and exploring the relationship between the two bots in more detail, showing how it lingered even after they wound up on opposite sides. With so many versions of Jetfire's story being so closely based on the original, the next use of his name on television, in Transformers Animated, stood out as essentially having no relation to the Generation 1 character. Introduced in 2009, animated Jetfire and his twin, Jetstorm, two of the earliest characters designed for the series, were enthusiastic, gymnastic young Autobots who were the subjects of an experiment that was intended to imbue them with the Decepticons' power of flight. The results exceeded expectations. Jetfire also gained the ability to project blasts of flame and to combine with his brother into the super robot Safeguard. On the surface, it might initially seem that Jetfire's live-action movie incarnation, a cranky old broken-down bot who turned into an SR-71 Blackbird, was as much of a departure from the original as the animated character had been. But in truth, he actually drew quite a bit from past incarnations. Introduced in 2009's Revenge of the Fallen, this Jetfire was a former Decepticon, a seeker who had come to Earth centuries ago to search for the lost matrix of leadership, only to ultimately defect to the Autobots. It wasn't in a prison of ice, but he did wind up frozen in stasis for decades by a lack of energon, until reactivated in the present day by Sam Witwicky and the power of the Allspark. Like Armada Jetfire, he combined with Optimus Prime to grant the Autobot leader the power of flight, though he did have to sacrifice his life to accomplish it. Lastly, the Jetfire of the Aligned continuity brought things back around, based extensively on the original character but with an English accent seemingly inspired by his movie counterpart. As seen in 2010's War for Cybertron video game, this Jetfire worked on the Trypticon space station before the war studying dark energon with his colleague Starscream. When Megatron seized the station, Starscream joined forces with the Decepticons, but Jetfire refused, fleeing and joining the Autobots. And that brings us up to date. Jetfire's fascinating and legally fraught beginnings had the potential to see him left in the past, but as you can see, he's defied history to become a major recurring figure in Transformers lore, despite Hasbro even being sued by Harmony Gold in 2013 for continuing to make toys of him, claiming it somehow infringed on the Robotech intellectual property. The rapid dismissal of that suit makes it clear Jetfire will continue to be a part of Transformers for years to come, whether he's Autobot, Decepticon, Australian, English, or anything in between. And those are the basics on Jetfire. Let's hear about your favourite version of the character in the comments. Thanks go out to Michael for sponsoring this episode. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our next sponsored episode, and I'll see you then.